I was born in a Christian family. I converted to communism. I applied to go and study in Saudi Arabia, and following that I went to Riyadh and did a master's in Islamic theology. During this period, I also went to a PhD in University of Wales. Shortly after that, I decided to accept Islam. The Gulf War came up, and we took the troops into mosques, etc. Alhamdulillah, more than 3,000 of them had accepted Islam.
Dennis Bradley Philips lahir di Kingston, Jamaika. Philips dibesarkan sebagai seorang Kristen dengan ibunya seorang Anglikan dan ayahnya seorang Presbyterian. Philips menghabiskan 11 tahun pertama masa kanak-kanaknya di Jamaika sebelum bermigrasi ke Toronto, Kanada.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I was born in Jamaica. At any rate, I was born in a Christian family. My mother was an Anglican, my father a Presbyterian. And my father's father was one of the leading church scholars there in Jamaica. He had learned Greek and Hebrew and was quite a figure. I didn't spend much time in Jamaica. My parents migrated to Canada when I was quite young. At any rate, my parents migrated to Canada. What I can recall of growing up in Canada, with regards to Christianity during my primary and secondary levels of education, Christianity was Sunday school. Sunday school was where you met girls.
Philips pindah bersama keluarganya ke Sabah, Malaysia Timur pada tahun 1964 karena orang tuanya adalah bagian dari kelompok Klan. Di Malaysia, orang tuanya mengadopsi seorang anak laki-laki Muslim keturunan Indonesia. Inilah pertama kali ia kenal dengan Islam.
My family, after I completed high school, migrated to Malaysia. During this period, my mother and father adopted an Indonesian boy whose name was Aus Sulaiman. Here was a Muslim element in my family, but he never said anything to us. I finished off high school and decided to go back to Canada to further my education on a tertiary level, which is in university.
Saat kuliah di Universitas Simon Fraser, Vancouver, ia diharuskan mengambil tambahan mata kuliah ideologi dunia. Disinilah ia kembali mengenal Islam lebih dalam saat membaca buku autobiografi Malcolm X.
During this period, I began to do a lot of reading in Marxist-Leninist literature, and I was exposed briefly to something of Islam through the autobiography of Malcolm X. However, his autobiography was read as a part of required reading. You know, for you to be a solid revolutionary in those days, you had to read certain books. You know, you just had to get through these books. Some interesting information in terms of the type of racial injustices which existed in America, which awoken me more, along with other books of this type, to the oppression which existed in Western society, and made me more open to embrace the communist ideal of a just society.
Ternyata mata kuliah ini menariknya masuk ke dalam faham komunis. Hingga lulus kuliah, Philips lalu pindah ke Amerika, bergabung dengan organisasi massa atau ormas yang memperjuangkan hak dan keadilan bagi masyarakat.
So, I converted to communism. I dropped out of school, finished off basically what was called an associate degree, 2 years in biochemistry, and I left Canada and went down to the States because this was where revolutionary activities were taking place. I joined a group there in Los Angeles and San Francisco known as the Soledad Defense Committee, which was basically involved in gathering funds for a court case which was going on at the time.
Setelah beberapa lama bergabung dalam organisasi untuk membela keadilan bagi masyarakat, ia menemukan bahwa organisasi ini juga ternyata penuh dengan korupsi dan kerusakan moral yang buruk. Philips begitu kecewa dengan perjuangannya selama ini dan ia merasa hidupnya hampa, seperti tidak berguna. Lalu ia kembali ke Toronto, Kanada. Sampai di Toronto, ia terkejut karena teman dekatnya telah memeluk Islam. Saat inilah ia mulai tertarik mempelajari Islam. Saat mempelajari Islam, ia menemukan prinsip kebenaran, keadilan sosial, dan pegangan hidup yang ia cari selama ini.
And I felt inside myself that, this was not going anywhere, really. I could see there was no real future in it. I decided to go back to Toronto. When I got back to Toronto, that a good friend of mine who was in the leadership committee of this organization, which I belong to, had accepted Islam. And this caused me to say, well, let me have a look. Because she was perhaps an even more fervent communist than I was. She was a Maoist. So for her to convert, it struck me as something, there's got to be something behind this. So I asked her for some books and I began to read. And after reading that book, actually, I was convinced that Islam really had the best program for human society, for establishing justice, etc. in human society.
Keyakinannya pada Islam dan pengakuannya pada kebesaran Tuhan semakin memuncak ketika ia mengalami sleep paralysis saat tertidur di perpustakaan. Ia tidak mampu untuk bangun. Ia merasa melihat banyak orang di perpustakaan dan ia berusaha untuk berteriak dan bergerak sekuat tenaga di antara keadaan sadar dan tidurnya, namun tak berhasil. Ia benar-benar merasakan seperti ada kekuatan lain yang sedang mengendalikan dirinya saat itu.
That it was like confirmation that there was a force beyond me, confirmation of the existence of God, in that I wasn't able to get myself out of that situation. The people in the room were not able to help me. That were it not for that which was beyond me, getting me out of that situation, I couldn't have. So that had a marked effect on me. Shortly after that, I decided to accept Islam. After that, I returned to Toronto and began to study Arabic and Islam. I applied to go and study in Saudi Arabia to University of Medina, and I was accepted there and began to study. I completed a BA in Usul al-Din, or Islamic Studies, and following that I went to Riyadh and did a master's in Islamic Theology. When I went to Riyadh, and I was invited whilst doing my master's to start teaching their Islamic Studies. So I took on this responsibility of teaching students, mainly who were expatriates, because it's an English medium, expatriates working there. Their parents had studied in America or England, and who wanted their children to continue in English medium. During this period, I also began a PhD in University of Wales. Whilst doing the PhD, the Gulf War came up. And prior to the Gulf War, I was invited out to base in Dhahran. So it was the Saudi Arabian Cultural Information Tent. There we provided information about Saudi Arabian culture, which of course, much of which is from Islam. So it meant explaining things about Islam. And we took the troops into the city. We helped them purchase things. We showed them different aspects of Islamic society. We took them into mosques, etc. And in the course of 6 months, before they were all processed out of the country, alhamdulillah, more than 3,000 of them had accepted Islam.
Setelah itu ia bergabung dengan Angkatan Udara Saudi Arabia pada Departemen Urusan Agama. Kemudian Doktor Abu Ameenah Bilal Philips yang menjadi nama muslimnya diperbantukan ke Amerika Serikat untuk membangun infrastruktur dan fasilitas ibadah bagi tentara Amerika yang beragama Islam. Hingga saat ini Doktor Abu Ameenah Bilal Philips sudah berdakwah keliling dunia termasuk ke Indonesia dan Malaysia. Alhamdulillah,